They say that betrayal doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It slips in quietly, disguised as late nights at the office, new passwords on phones, and the subtle shift in how someone says, "I love you," from a declaration to an obligation. For 15 years, I believed I knew my wife. I believed in the sanctuary we'd built together, in the promises we'd made before family and friends, in the life we'd carefully constructed brick by brick. I was wrong. My name is David Patterson, and this is the story of how everything I thought was solid turned to smoke in my hands. This isn't a tale of dramatic confrontations or movie-style revelations. Real life is messier than that, more insidious. It's finding a receipt that doesn't quite add up, noticing your spouse showering at odd times, watching the person you've shared a bed with for over a decade become a stranger who happens to live in your house. I'm an architect by trade. I design buildings, create spaces where people live their lives, plan for structural integrity and long-term stability. The irony isn't lost on me that I couldn't see the cracks forming in my own foundation until the whole structure was ready to collapse. Maybe that's always how it goes. We're so busy looking at blueprints that we miss what's happening right in front of us. When it started, I couldn't tell you. Betrayal doesn't timestamp itself. But when I discovered it, that I can tell you about. September 14th, 2023, a Thursday evening that began like any other and ended with my world turning inside out. Our two kids, Emma and Jack, were at my mother's house for the weekend. My wife, Catherine, Katie to everyone who knew her, had been acting strange for months, but I'd attributed it to stress. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveled frequently, and always seemed to be chasing the next big account. I trusted her. God, how completely I trusted her. This story isn't just about infidelity. It's about the systematic destruction of a family, the legal battles that follow, and the kind of revenge that doesn't come from anger but from the cold, calculated determination to ensure that actions have consequences. Because here's what I learned. The family court system isn't designed for justice. It's designed for division of assets and custody arrangements. Real accountability? That's something you have to architect yourself. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in late June, 3 months before everything fell apart. Katie came home from a business trip to Atlanta smelling different. Not perfume. I'd have noticed that immediately. It was subtler. Her shampoo was wrong. She'd left that morning using the lavender stuff she'd bought in bulk from Costco, the same brand she'd used for 3 years. She came back smelling like coconut and vanilla, something tropical and expensive. "New shampoo?" I asked, while she unpacked her rolling suitcase in our bedroom. She didn't even look up. "Hotel stuff. Mine leaked all over my toiletry bag. Had to toss it." Reasonable explanation. I nodded and went back to reviewing the blueprints for a commercial project in downtown Portland. We lived in Lake Oswego, Oregon, in a 4-bedroom house with a view of the water that I'd designed myself. Every corner of that house held a memory. Emma's height marks on the kitchen doorframe. The reading nook where Jack learned to love books. The master bathroom where Katie and I had laughed through a disastrous attempt at retiling the shower. I pushed the shampoo thing out of my mind. The second crack came 2 weeks later. I needed to use Katie's laptop because mine was updating, and I had to send a client some revised drawings. Her computer was on the kitchen counter, lid closed. When I opened it, her email was up. She'd forgotten to log out. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. I was literally moving the mouse to close the browser when I saw the preview of an email in her inbox. The sender's name was B. Wright, and the subject line read, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My hand froze on the trackpad. I should have clicked it. I should have read the whole thing right then. Instead, I closed the laptop, set it back exactly where I'd found it, and used my phone to email the client. Some part of my brain was already protecting me, building walls around a truth I wasn't ready to face. That night, I watched Katie at dinner. She'd made pasta, nothing fancy, just spaghetti with marinara from a jar and a bagged salad. Emma, 12 years old, and in that phase where everything annoyed her, complained about the lack of garlic bread. Jack, 9 and still mostly sweet, told Katie about his day at summer camp. Something involving a frog and a counselor who screamed. Katie laughed in all the right places. She asked follow-up questions. She looked like the woman I'd married, the woman who'd held my hand in the delivery room twice, who'd cried with me when my father died, who'd celebrated every professional victory and consoled every setback. I told myself I'd imagine the email. Be right could be anyone, a colleague, a client. The message could mean anything, but I'd already started counting her smiles, and I noticed they never quite reached her eyes anymore. The third crack, the one that made me start really paying attention, came in mid-July. Katie's phone rang while she was in the shower. It was 9:30 on a Saturday morning. The kids were watching cartoons in the living room. I was making coffee in the kitchen when her phone, sitting on the counter, lit up with an incoming call. The name on the screen read, Bryce, Regional Manager. I knew Katie's regional manager. His name was Todd Summers. I'd met him at company events, shaken his hand, made small talk about quarterly sales figures and market penetration strategies. This wasn't Todd. The fourth crack appeared on August 3rd, a Thursday afternoon when I'd left work early with a migraine that turned out to be stress manifesting as physical pain. I found Katie in our bedroom, standing at the closet with her phone pressed to her ear, speaking in hushed tones that went silent the moment the door opened. I have to go, she said quickly, ending the call. David, you're home early. Headache, I said, watching her face. Who was that? Just Melissa from the Atlanta office. Conference call stuff. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Why don't you lie down? I'll get you some ibuprofen. Melissa. Another name I'd never heard her mention before. I took the pills she brought, closed my eyes, and listened to her move around the house below me. The front door opened and closed. Her car started in the driveway. When I checked her calendar later, the shared family one we'd maintained for years, there was nothing scheduled for that afternoon. The fifth crack, August 15th. Katie announced at dinner that she'd be gone the entire last week of August for a regional conference in Dallas. A week? Emma looked up from her phone. That's longer than usual. Big event, Katie said, not meeting anyone's eyes. All the regional teams. Mandatory attendance. I nodded, cut into my chicken, said nothing. But later, after the kids were in bed, I did something I'd never done before. I opened her laptop. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, still logged in. And I looked. Not extensively, not invasively. Just her work email, just her calendar, just enough to verify what she'd told me. The Dallas conference existed. It was real, scheduled for August 28th through 30th. 3 days, not 7. I sat there in the blue glow of the screen, feeling something fundamental shift inside my chest. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't paranoia or insecurity or the normal anxieties of a long marriage. This was confirmation, cold and irrefutable. She was lying to me, deliberately, systematically. I should have confronted her then. That's what a normal person would do, what a healthy marriage would demand. But I'd already learned, from watching foundations fail, from seeing buildings collapse, that you don't act on incomplete information. You assess, you document, you wait until you understand the full scope of the damage. So I waited. The sixth crack came not from Katie, but from an absence of Katie. She left on August 27th, kissing both kids goodbye, telling them she'd bring back souvenirs from Texas. She kissed me too, a perfunctory press of lips that felt like a signature on a contract neither of us believed in anymore. Be safe, I said. Always am. She smiled, pulled her rolling suitcase toward the door. I'll call tonight when I land. She did call, at 8:47 p.m., right on schedule. Just got to the hotel, she said. Flight was fine. How are the kids? Good. Jack wants to know if you'll bring him a cowboy hat. She laughed, that familiar sound I'd heard for 15 years. I'll see what I can find. Love you. Love you too, I said automatically, and wondered when those words had become just sounds we made, empty of meaning. On August 28th, I did something else I'd never done. I called the hotel in Dallas, the Marriott Marquis where her conference was being held. I asked to be connected to Catherine Patterson's room. I'm sorry, sir, the operator said after a pause. I don't have a guest by that name registered. Could you check Catherine Wright? She might have registered under her maiden name. A guess, but an educated one. Another pause. No, sir. No Catherine Wright either. Thank you, I said, and hung up. I sat in my home office, the room where I drafted the plans for this house, where I designed buildings that still stood throughout Portland, and I felt the last remnants of my trust crumble into dust. She wasn't in Dallas. She'd never planned to be in Dallas. The conference was real, but she wasn't attending it. She was somewhere else, with someone else, living a life I knew nothing about. The architect in me wanted to see the whole structure before deciding how to demolish it. The husband in me wanted to drive to wherever she really was and demand answers. But I did neither. Instead, I opened my laptop and I started documenting. Screenshots of her calendar. Copies of credit card statements I'd never looked at closely before. Phone records from our family plan. I created a folder on my computer, password protected, labeled it Project Files, Riverside Commercial, and I built my case the way I'd build a blueprint, methodically, precisely, with attention to every detail. What I found made my headache from 2 weeks earlier seem like a blessing. Charges from restaurants in Seattle when she'd claimed to be in Atlanta. Hotel stays in Portland, our own city. On nights she'd told me she was traveling. Cash withdrawals, hundreds of dollars at a time, from accounts I'd thought we shared equally. A paper trail of deception stretching back not weeks but months, maybe longer. And then, buried in her email, the personal account she didn't know I could access because we'd set up each other's password recovery years ago, back when we had nothing to hide. I found them. The messages. Not from B. Wright this time, but from an address that was just a string of numbers and letters, anonymous and untraceable. But the content was clear enough. Can't wait to see you next week. The time apart is killing me. Last night was perfect. You're perfect. I hate that you have to go back to that life. Soon, baby. Soon we'll have everything we planned. I read them all. Every single one, going back to March. 5 months of another relationship running parallel to ours. A shadow life I'd been too blind to see. The messages stopped being romantic around mid-August. They became practical, logistical, references to the plan and getting everything ready and just a few more weeks. The last one, sent August 26th, the day before she left, made my blood run cold. Everything set. After this trip, we start fresh. New city, new life, just like we talked about. I love you. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the screen illuminating the darkness of my office, and I understood with perfect clarity what was happening. Katie wasn't having an affair. Katie was leaving. Not just cheating, not just betraying our vows. She was planning to disappear, to start over somewhere else with someone else, to walk away from 15 years and 2 children and a life we'd built together as if none of it had ever mattered. The rage that filled me then wasn't hot. It was ice cold, crystalline, sharp as broken glass. I closed the laptop carefully, stood up, walked downstairs to the kitchen. I poured myself 2 fingers of the scotch we kept for special occasions, drank it in one swallow, and made a decision. If Katie wanted to burn our life down, fine. But she was going to do it in broad daylight, with everyone watching, and she was going to face every consequence that came with it. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg or plead or ask her to reconsider. I was going to let her make her choice, take her actions, commit fully to whatever plan she and her mystery lover had concocted. And then I was going to make sure it all came crashing down around them both. The September 14th confrontation I'd been planning never happened. Not the way I'd envisioned it anyway. On September 12th, 2 days before I'd mentally circled as my moment of truth, Katie came home from work with an expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not nervousness. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear that made her hands shake as she set her purse on the kitchen counter. "David, we need to talk." Her voice was tight, controlled in that way people get when they're trying very hard not to fall apart. "Can you send the kids to their rooms?" I looked up from the structural plans I'd been reviewing at the dining table. Emma was doing homework at the other end, earbuds in. Jack was building something with Legos in the living room. "Emma, Jack, upstairs please. Homework time." Emma rolled her eyes but gathered her things. Jack protested, "But I'm not done with my spaceship," until I gave him the look that meant business. They trudged upstairs, and I heard Emma's door close, then Jack's. Katie waited until the house was quiet. She didn't sit down. Instead, she paced to the window overlooking the water, her back to me. "I witnessed something," she said. "At work. Yesterday. Something bad." I closed my laptop slowly, giving myself time to school my expression. "What kind of something?" "I can't give you details. The FBI said I shouldn't discuss it with anyone." She turned to face me, and I'll give her credit. She looked genuinely terrified. "David, we have to move, all of us. They're putting me in witness protection." The words hung in the air between us. Witness protection. It was so absurd, so perfectly Katie in its dramatic overreach that I almost laughed. Almost. "Witness protection," I repeated. "For something that happened yesterday?" "Yes. They said the people involved are dangerous, that they might come after me, after all of us." Her voice cracked. "We have to leave, David. Soon. Maybe this weekend." This weekend. 3 days away. Right around when her emails had mentioned everything finally happening and no more waiting. I stood up, moved to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water I didn't want. Gave myself time to think. "What exactly did you witness?" "I can't tell you. They were very clear." "Katie, if we're uprooting our entire lives, our kids' lives, I need more than I witnessed something." I kept my voice level, reasonable. "What agency? Who's your contact?" "FBI. Agent. Walker." She fumbled with her phone. "He gave me his card. It's in my purse." Of course she had a card. Of course she'd thought this through. I wondered if Bryce had helped her plan this, if they'd workshopped the story together. The thought made something cold and hard settle in my chest. "Show me." She dug through her purse, produced a business card. FBI seal, Portland Field Office, Agent Robert Walker. It looked legitimate, probably was. You could order convincing fakes online for $20. "I want to call him," I said. "David, if we're moving our children into witness protection, I'm calling the FBI to verify." I pulled out my phone. "What's the number?" She rattled off the number from the card. I dialed, put it on speaker. It rang 3 times before going to a generic voicemail. "You've reached Robert Walker. Leave a message." "See?" Katie said. "He's probably in meetings. He said he'd call back." I hung up and dialed the main FBI Portland Field Office number I'd already looked up weeks ago during my initial investigation into Katie's activities. A receptionist answered. "FBI Portland. How may I direct your call?" "Agent Robert Walker, please." A pause. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have an agent by that name at this office." Katie's face went white. "Can you check your directory?" I asked. "He gave my wife his card today regarding a witness protection case." "Sir, I've been here 6 years. There's no Agent Walker in Portland. Would you like me to connect you with someone else?" Yes, whoever handles witness protection cases. Katie was shaking her head, mouthing, no, but I ignored her. The receptionist transferred me. Another voice, male, professional. Agent Garrett. I explained the situation. My wife claimed she'd witnessed a crime, been contacted by Agent Walker, told we needed to enter witness protection immediately. Sir, I can tell you right now, witness protection doesn't work that way. The U.S. Marshal Service handles WITSEC, not the FBI, and the process takes weeks, sometimes months. We don't just move people over a weekend. He paused. What's your wife's name? Catherine Patterson. I heard typing. I'm not showing any Catherine Patterson in our system as a witness to anything. No active cases, no pending cases. When did she say this incident occurred? Yesterday, September 11th. More typing. I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson, but your wife hasn't had any contact with this office. If someone claiming to be FBI approached her, that's actually a crime in itself. I'd like to get more information. Katie grabbed for my phone. I stepped back, holding it away from her. And if your wife has information about someone impersonating a federal agent, Agent Garrett continued, she needs to come in and file a report. I understand. Thank you, Agent Garrett. I ended the call. Katie was crying now, but they were angry tears, not sad ones. You had no right. No right? The words came out harder than I'd intended. Katie, you just told me we need to uproot our children's lives based on a lie. I had every right. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like you're trying to run away from something, or run toward something, or someone. Her face changed. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Calculation. She was weighing her options, deciding how much to admit. There's someone, she said finally. Someone I got involved with. He's in trouble. Bad trouble, and I... You what? Decided to drag me and the kids into whatever mess you've created? I thought if we all left together, if we just moved somewhere new? She was talking faster now, words tumbling out. He needs to leave town. There are people looking for him. I thought if I could convince you we needed to move, we could all start over and what? I'd just accept your boyfriend into our new life. We'd be one big happy family? She flinched at the word boyfriend. How much trouble is he in? I asked. I don't know exactly. He said there were some misunderstandings, some people he owed money to. Katie, how much trouble? She looked away. There might be warrants. I don't know for sure. He said it was all a mistake, that he could explain. I sat down heavily. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, was trying to help a fugitive skip town, possibly using our family as cover. Where is he now? I can't tell you that. Katie, I can't, David. I won't. Her jaw set in that stubborn way I'd seen 1,000 times. You can be angry at me, you can hate me, but I'm not telling you where he is. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then I need you to leave. What? Get your things and go, tonight. I'll tell the kids you had an emergency work trip. We'll figure out the real conversation later. David, please. You tried to manipulate me into helping a criminal escape justice. You were willing to use our children as cover for whatever scheme you've cooked up. I need you out of this house while I figure out what happens next. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she grabbed her purse and walked toward the stairs. Just overnight things, I called after her. You can get the rest later. I heard her moving around upstairs, heard Emma's door open, and Katie's muffled voice explaining she had to go back to work for an emergency. Heard Emma's annoyed response, Jack's disappointed one. 20 minutes later, Katie stood at the front door with a small suitcase. I love you, she said. I know you don't believe that right now, but I do. I didn't respond. She left. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway. Then I picked up my phone and called Agent Garrett back. Agent Garrett, this is David Patterson. I called earlier about my wife's witness protection claim. I think I have some information you'll want to hear. The morning after Katie left, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a legal pad, doing what I'd always done when faced with a complex problem. I broke it down into components. Emma and Jack were still asleep upstairs. I'd told them their mother had to go away for work unexpectedly. Jack had accepted this without question. Katie traveled often enough that it seemed normal. Emma had given me a long, searching look that suggested she knew something was wrong, but she hadn't pressed. I had maybe a week before they'd start asking harder questions. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Rachel. Tried calling Katie about Thanksgiving. Not answering. Everything okay? I stared at the message. The urge to unload everything was powerful. Rachel had never particularly liked Katie, had always said there was something too smooth about her. But I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Not until I understood the full scope of what I was dealing with. All fine, she's traveling. We'll have her call you. The lie came easily. I'd become good at those lately. I turned back to my laptop. Katie's email was still open from last night. I'd changed the password at 2 a.m., locked her out of her own account. Petty, maybe, but I needed to control the information flow. The emails from B. Wright painted a clearer picture in daylight. I'd been too shocked last night to absorb all the details, but now I read methodically, taking notes. March 18th. Can't wait to see you in Atlanta. 2 more months, and we're done with all this sneaking around. April 3rd. Looked at properties in Costa Rica like you suggested. No extradition treaty, just like you said. Paradise. My pen stopped. Extradition treaty. I read it again. Not what a great place to start over or romantic getaway. Extradition treaty. April 29th. Lawyer says if I can stay out of Oregon for 6 months, statute of limitations runs out on the Portland thing. Your husband's relocation for work would be perfect timing. Portland thing. Statute of limitations. I sat back. The architecture of Katie's plan suddenly visible. She hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been engineering an escape route for a fugitive, using our family as cover. The fake witness protection story made perfect sense now. Get David to agree to move, preferably out of state or out of country. Bryce comes along, maybe as a helpful friend, or under some other pretense. Once we're relocated, Katie and Bryce disappear together, leaving me holding the bag in a new city with 2 confused kids. Elegant in its way. Monstrous, but elegant. I pulled up a search engine and typed, Oregon Statute of Limitations fraud. The results were educational. Most fraud offenses, 3 years. Certain financial crimes, 6 years. But if the person left the state, the clock stopped ticking. Tolling, they called it. So Bryce had done something in Portland. Fraud, probably, based on the lawyer reference, and was trying to wait out the statute of limitations. But he couldn't do it while staying in Oregon, and apparently couldn't risk leaving on his own. Enter Katie, with her traveling sales job and her architect husband who could theoretically work from anywhere. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Bryce Wright Portland, Oregon arrest warrant. Nothing. Bryce Wright Portland fraud. Nothing. Bryce Wright wanted Oregon. Still nothing. I tried variations. Brian Wright. Bruce Wright. B. Wright could be anything. Benjamin, Bradley, Brandon. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Patterson? A woman's voice. Professional. This is Special Agent Jennifer Walsh with the FBI's Portland field office. I understand you called our main line last night regarding a witness protection claim? My stomach dropped. I'd called the FBI's public number at 11 p.m., half expecting to get voicemail. Instead, I'd reached a duty officer who'd taken my information and said someone would follow up. I hadn't expected it to be this fast. Yes, I said. My wife told me she was entering witness protection. I wanted to verify. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to stop you there. I need to ask you some questions and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Of course. Your wife is Catherine Ann Patterson, correct? Pharmaceutical sales representative? Yes. And she told you she witnessed a crime and was being placed in protective custody? She said she witnessed something in Atlanta. Said an agent Robert Walker was handling her case. There was a pause. I heard keyboard clicking. We have no Agent Walker in any of our offices, Walsh said, and no active witness protection cases involving anyone named Catherine Patterson. I know, I said. That's why I called. Mr. Patterson, when your wife told you this, did she ask you to do anything? Move somewhere? Withdraw money? Change your routine in any way? She wanted the whole family to relocate immediately. This weekend. She said it wasn't safe to stay in our house. More typing. And did she indicate where you'd be relocating to? No. She said Walker would arrange everything. When I pushed back, she got angry. Said I was putting the kids in danger by not trusting her. Mr. Patterson, I need you to tell me everything your wife said last night. Every detail you can remember. So I did. The whole story spilled out. The witness protection claim, the urgency, the mysterious Agent Walker, Katie's insistence that we had to leave immediately. I told her about finding the emails, about Be Right, about the references to extradition treaties and statutes of limitations. Walsh was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to be direct with you. Your wife may be involved in something serious. The pattern you're describing, fake federal agent, pressure to relocate, references to avoiding extradition, these are red flags for several types of criminal activity. What kind of activity? That's what we need to determine. I'd like to send 2 agents to your home this morning to take a formal statement and examine any evidence you have. Would that be acceptable? I looked at the clock. 7:15 a.m. The kids would be up soon. My children are here, I said. Can we do this without... We'll be discreet. Plain clothes, unmarked car. As far as your children are concerned, we're colleagues of yours reviewing some documents. Okay, when? 2 hours. And Mr. Patterson? Don't contact your wife. Don't tell her about this conversation. If she reaches out to you, act normal but don't agree to anything. Can you do that? Yes. After she hung up, I sat staring at my phone. The situation had just escalated beyond a marital crisis. The FBI was involved. Katie wasn't just cheating. She was potentially involved in federal crimes. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Jack, probably, always the early riser. I closed the laptop and stood up, forcing my face into something approximating normal. Whatever was coming, I had to protect Emma and Jack from it. They didn't need to know their mother was a criminal. Not yet, anyway. Dad? Jack appeared in the doorway, his hair sticking up in 3 directions. Can we have pancakes? Sure, buddy, I said. Pancakes sound perfect. As I pulled out the mixing bowl, my phone buzzed again. A text from Katie. I know you're angry, but please don't do anything rash. We can fix this. I love you. I stared at the message, the audacity of it. After everything, the lies, the manipulation, the plan to uproot our entire family to help her criminal boyfriend, she thought we could fix this. I deleted the text without responding. 2 hours until the FBI arrived. 2 hours to pretend everything was normal while my 15-year marriage collapsed into federal evidence. I cracked eggs into the bowl and started whisking. The agents arrived at 2:47 p.m., according to the timestamp on my doorbell camera. I'd spent the intervening hours in a strange fugue state, making lunch for the kids, answering Emma's questions about why Mom wasn't home yet, with increasingly creative deflections, watching Jack build an elaborate Lego spaceship at the kitchen table. Normal Saturday afternoon activities, except I was treating my own house like a crime scene I couldn't disturb. Agent Garrett turned out to be a compact woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of direct gaze that probably extracted confessions through sheer force of will. Special Agent Walsh I'd already spoken to by phone. Younger, maybe late 30s, with a measured politeness that felt more dangerous than Garrett's intensity. "Mr. Patterson," Garrett's handshake was firm. "Thank you for contacting us." I'd sent the kids to Emma's room with instructions to stay there and watch movies. Emma had rolled her eyes but complied, probably sensing something was wrong. Jack had just been excited about unlimited screen time. We sat in my living room, the space I'd designed with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, meant to feel open and peaceful. Now it felt exposed. "Walk us through the timeline again," Walsh said, pulling out a tablet. "From the beginning." So I did. The shampoo, the emails, the fake business trips. The card Katie had given me yesterday with the non-existent agent's name. Her claim about witness protection, her admission when I'd called her bluff, her departure with a single overnight bag. "And she hasn't contacted you since she left?" Garrett asked. "No. Her phone goes straight to voicemail." Walsh made a note. "The email correspondence you mentioned. We'll need access to that." I'd already prepared for this, had screenshots saved to a thumb drive. I handed it over. Everything I could find. The account was on her laptop. She took the laptop with her, but I'd already backed up the relevant emails to my phone. Garrett's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. Approval, maybe. "You mentioned references to extradition and statute of limitations in these emails." "Yes, and Costa Rica specifically. Something about it being a good place to wait things out." "Costa Rica has no extradition treaty with the United States," Walsh said, almost to herself. She glanced at Garrett. "Financial fraud, probably. Maybe securities violations." "The name she gave you for this individual," Garrett continued. "Bryce, regional manager. You're certain that's false?" "I called her actual regional manager. Todd Summers. He's never heard of anyone named Bryce in their organization." Walsh was scrolling through something on her tablet. "We ran the name through our databases after you called this morning. Bryce Wright. There are 17 in the system. None currently wanted in Oregon, but we're expanding the search parameters." "He might not be using his real name," I said. The emails were careful, vague, like they knew someone might read them. "Smart." Garrett's tone made it clear this wasn't a compliment. "Your wife, Catherine, what's her financial situation? Does she have access to significant funds?" I thought about our accounts, the careful budgeting we'd always maintained. "We have joint savings, about $40,000. Her pharmaceutical sales commission goes into a separate account, but I have access to view it. Last I checked, maybe $15,000. "When did you last check?" 2 weeks ago." Walsh and Garrett exchanged a look. "We'll need authorization to examine those accounts," Walsh said. "Both joint and individual. If she's been moving money, we need to trace it." The implications settled over me like cold water. "You think she's been planning this for a while." "The witness protection story suggests sophistication," Garrett said. "That's not something you improvise. She had a fake business card made, created a cover story designed to leverage your trust and your protective instincts. That takes time." I'd been an architect for 20 years. I understood planning, the careful progression from concept to execution. But I'd never imagined those skills turned against me in my own home. "What happens now?" I asked. "We investigate," Walsh said. "We'll need a formal statement from you. Everything you've told us, in detail. We'll examine the financial records, trace the emails, try to identify this Bryce individual. If your wife is harboring a fugitive, that's a federal offense. If she's actively helped him evade law enforcement, that's obstruction. And if she comes back," Garrett's expression hardened. "You call us immediately. Don't confront her. Don't let her know you've spoken to us. We need to see what she does, where she goes." She's the mother of my children. The words came out rougher than I'd intended. I understand. Walsh's voice softened slightly. But right now, she's also potentially involved in federal crimes. We need to determine the extent of her involvement and locate the individual she's protecting. They stayed for another hour, taking my statement, examining the card Katie had given me, which Garrett bagged as evidence with the kind of care usually reserved for something dangerous. They photographed the email screenshots, asked detailed questions about Katie's travel schedule, her habits, her recent behavior changes. One more thing, Garrett said as they were preparing to leave. The children. How much do they know? Nothing. They think their mother's away on a business trip. Keep it that way for now. If Catherine contacts them, she won't. I surprised myself with the certainty. Whatever else she's done, she won't drag them into this directly. Walsh tilted her head, studying me. You sound very sure of that. I was married to her for 15 years. I didn't see the affair, didn't see the lies about witness protection. But I know she loves those kids. I paused. Or I think I know that. I'm not sure what I know anymore. Garrett's expression softened for the first time since she'd arrived. That's the hardest part, Mr. Patterson. Questioning everything you thought was solid. But for what it's worth, your instinct about the children is probably right. Most people, even when they're making terrible choices, try to protect their kids from the fallout. After they left, I sat in the living room for a long time, watching the light change on the water. Emma appeared in the doorway around 4:30. Dad? Are we ordering pizza or what? Yeah, sweetheart. Pizza sounds good. Who were those people? I'd prepared for this question. Insurance agents. Boring adult stuff about the house. She accepted this with the easy credulity of a 12-year-old who didn't really care about the answer anyway. Can I get pepperoni? Sure. She disappeared back upstairs. I heard Jack's voice, muffled through the ceiling, something about his Lego spaceship. Normal sounds. Normal Saturday evening. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering, remembering Garrett's instructions. Don't confront her. Let us see what she does. Hello? David. Katie's voice tight with something I couldn't identify. Fear, maybe. Or anger. We need to talk. I kept my tone neutral, channeling every ounce of self-control I possessed. Where are you? That doesn't matter. I need you to listen to me. The people who came to the house today. So she knew. Somehow, she knew the FBI had been here. What people? I asked, playing dumb. Don't! Her voice cracked. Please don't. I know you called them. I know you think you're doing the right thing, but you don't understand what's happening. Then explain it to me. Silence on the line. I could hear background noise. Traffic, maybe. Voices. She was somewhere public. I can't, she said finally. Not over the phone. But David, you have to trust me. Trust you? The words came out harder than I'd intended. You lied about witness protection. You're involved with someone running from the law. You were going to uproot our entire family based on a fabrication. What exactly should I trust? I was trying to protect you. All of you. By lying? By planning to disappear to Costa Rica? Another silence. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. How much do you know? Everything, I wanted to say. I know about the affair, the emails, the careful planning. I know you're not the person I thought you were. But Garrett's instructions echoed in my head. Don't confront her. Let us see what she does. I know enough, I said instead. Katie, come home. Whatever this is, we can... I can't come home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She was crying now, I could hear it. Tell the kids I love them. Tell them. The line went dead. I sat there with the phone in my hand, my carefully designed living room darkening around me as the sun set over the water. Somewhere out there, my wife of 15 years was running. From what exactly, I still didn't fully understand. But I was going to find out. The call from Agent Walsh came at 2:47 p.m. on September 15th, a Friday. I was sitting in my home office, staring at the same set of blueprints I'd been pretending to review for 3 hours when my phone buzzed. "Mr. Patterson, this is Agent Walsh. Do you have a moment?" I set down my coffee, cold now, untouched since morning. "Yes. We've identified your wife's associate. His name is Bryce Callahan. Does that name mean anything to you?" "No. He's wanted on multiple outstanding warrants out of Portland. Embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft. He worked as a financial advisor until March of this year, when several clients discovered he'd been systematically draining their retirement accounts. We're talking about $2.3 million across 14 victims." I closed my eyes. $2.3 million. The number sat in my chest like a stone. "The statute of limitations your wife referenced in her emails," Walsh continued, "that's not applicable here. Mr. Callahan seems to have convinced her it was, but fraud charges don't expire in 5 years. He either doesn't understand the law, or he's been lying to her." "Probably both," I said. "We've been tracking Callahan for 6 months. He disappeared in late March, right after the first victim filed a police report. We know he's still in the country. He attempted to use a fake passport at SeaTac Airport in July and aborted when TSA flagged it. Since then, nothing." I thought about Katie's travel schedule, the sudden increase in trips, the extended stays. "My wife's been hiding him. That's our working theory. We're examining her credit card records now. With your authorization, we can move faster. We need to know where she's been spending money, what she's been purchasing. Hotel stays, rental properties, storage units, anything that might indicate where Callahan is hiding. You have my authorization, whatever you need. I'm emailing you a consent form. Sign it and send it back today if possible." Walsh paused. "Mr. Patterson, I need to be direct with you. Your wife is in serious legal jeopardy. Harboring a fugitive is a federal offense. If she's been moving money for him, that's additional charges. If she filed any false reports with law enforcement, she gave me a fake FBI business card. She claimed she was entering witness protection." The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds. "She impersonated a federal agent?" "She showed me a card with an FBI seal. Said her handler's name was Agent Robert Walker. She told me we needed to move the family immediately for our safety." Jesus Christ. Walsh's professional composure cracked slightly. "That's a separate federal crime. Mr. Patterson, your wife could be looking at significant prison time." I should have felt something. Horror, maybe. Grief. Instead, I felt nothing but a cold, spreading clarity. "What do you need from me?" "Everything. Every document, every email, every text message. If she contacts you again, we need to know immediately. And Mr. Patterson," Walsh's voice shifted, became almost gentle. "You should consult with an attorney, for yourself. You're not under investigation, but you need to protect your interests and your children." "I understand. We'll be in touch." The line went dead. I sat there in my office, surrounded by the blueprints and elevation drawings of other people's buildings, other people's dreams, and felt the foundation of my own life continue its systematic collapse. Katie called again that night at 11:23 p.m. I was in bed, not sleeping, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle around me. Emma and Jack were asleep down the hall. I'd told them their mother was on an extended business trip. Emma had looked at me with her two knowing 12-year-old eyes and said nothing. Jack had asked if Mom would be home for his birthday next month. I'd said I didn't know. When the phone rang, I almost didn't answer. But some part of me, the part that still remembered 15 years of marriage, of shared breakfasts and inside jokes and building a life together, made me pick up. "David." Her voice was tight, strained. "I need you to do something for me." "No. Please, just listen. I need you to wire me money. $5,000. I'll pay you back, I swear. But I need it now. I sat up in bed. Where are you? I can't tell you that. Katie, the FBI knows about Bryce Callahan. They know what he did. They know you've been hiding him. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. They told you his name. Her voice was flat now, dead. They told me everything. The embezzlement, the warrants, the victims. I kept my voice low, conscious of the children sleeping. They told me you're facing federal charges. I love him, David. 4 words. Simple. Devastating. He stole over $2 million from people who trusted him. Retirees. People who'd spent their whole lives saving. You don't understand. He made mistakes, yes. But the system is rigged against people like him. His clients were all wealthy. They'll be fine. They have insurance. Stop. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, Lake Oswego was dark and still. Don't do that. Don't make excuses for him. He's a criminal and you know it. I know he needs help. I know he needs me. And your children? Do they need you? Another silence. I can't come home, David. If I come back, they'll arrest me. They'll use me to get to him and I won't do that. I won't betray him. The word, betray, hung in the air between us. But you'll betray your family. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Katie. You lied to me for months. You were planning to uproot our entire lives, move Emma and Jack away from their school and their friends, all to provide cover for your fugitive boyfriend. You impersonated a federal agent. You created an entire fake witness protection story. My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. You looked me in the eye and lied about everything. I did what I had to do. For him? Not for us. For him. I need that money, David. Please, I'm asking you. Where are you? I can't. Then I can't help you. I heard her breath catch. If you ever loved me, I did love you. For 15 years, I loved you completely. I trusted you with everything I had, and you took that trust and you burned it down for a man who steals from retirees. David, if you contact me again, I'm reporting it to the FBI immediately. Agent Walsh gave me explicit instructions. Any contact from you, I'm required to document and report. You bastard. Goodbye, Katie. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone, waiting to see if she'd call back. She didn't. Instead, at 11:47 p.m., I received a text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Agent Walsh's email, and then blocked the number. Then I walked down the hall to check on Emma and Jack. Both sleeping peacefully, unaware that their mother had just chosen a criminal over her own family. Emma was curled around her stuffed elephant, the one she'd had since she was 3. Jack was sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the side, his mouth slightly open. I stood in each doorway and watched them breathe. They deserved better than this. Better than a mother who'd abandoned them. Better than a father who'd been too blind to see what was happening in his own house. I couldn't change the past, but I could control what happened next. Back in my office, I opened my laptop and began composing an email to Agent Walsh. I attached every document I had: emails, text messages, credit card statements, phone records. I detailed every lie Katie had told, every suspicious trip, every inconsistency I'd noticed and ignored. And then I did something else. I opened Katie's email account. I still had the password, and began reading through her correspondence with Bryce Callahan again. This time, I wasn't looking for evidence of the affair. I was looking for something else entirely. Location markers. Clues. Anything that might tell me where they were hiding. Because Katie had asked me for money, which meant they were running out, which meant they were getting desperate, which meant they were going to make mistakes. And when they did, I was going to be ready. I spent the next 48 hours becoming someone I barely recognized. A man who analyzed his wife's emails with the same methodical precision I applied to structural load calculations. The FBI had copies of everything, of course. But they were looking for Bryce Callahan, tracking financial transactions and known associates. I was looking for Katie. Not the fugitive's accomplice, but the woman I'd married 15 years ago, trying to understand the exact moment she'd decided our life together was worth less than a future with a criminal. The emails painted an uglier picture than I'd initially grasped. Their affair hadn't started in March. That was just when they'd begun using Katie's work email. Buried in her personal Gmail, the account she'd left logged in on the family iPad, I found messages dating back to November of the previous year. Nearly a year of lies. A year of "I love you" texts sent to me from airport lounges while she composed entirely different love letters to him. They'd met at a pharmaceutical conference in Phoenix. Katie had mentioned the trip, 4 days in late October, some tedious symposium on market penetration strategies for new cardiac medications. She'd complained about the heat, the bland conference center food, the boring keynote speakers. She hadn't mentioned Bryce Callahan, who'd been presenting himself as a medical device consultant with venture capital connections. "You're the most alive person I've ever met," he'd written in that first email. "Everyone else at these things is sleepwalking through their lives. But you actually see the possibilities." I read that line 3 times, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Because I recognized the technique. It was the same approach Katie used in pharmaceutical sales. Identify what the client wants to hear, then position your product as the solution to their unspoken need. Bryce had sold Katie on herself, on a version of herself that was exciting, daring, unappreciated by her dull architect husband who designed office buildings and came home smelling like blueprint toner. The November and December emails were flirtatious but relatively innocent. Compliments, shared frustrations about work, inside jokes from the conference. In January, they'd met for lunch in Portland when Bryce claimed to be in town for business. February brought a weekend in Seattle. Katie had told me she was attending a training seminar. By March, they were planning their future together. 6 months, Bryce had written on March 18th. That's all I need to liquidate the remaining assets and set up the Costa Rica accounts. Then it's you and me and the rest of our lives, baby. No more pretending. No more hiding. Liquidate the remaining assets. The phrase had seemed abstract when Agent Walsh mentioned Bryce's embezzlement. Now, reading it in context, I understood that Katie had known exactly what she was getting into. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen for the wrong man and discovered his crimes too late. This was a woman who'd actively participated in planning their escape. "What about the kids?" Katie had written back. "I can't just abandon Emma and Jack." My hands tightened on the laptop edge. "Bring them," Bryce had responded. "Costa Rica has great international schools. They'll love it there. Beaches, adventure, a real life instead of suburban prison. David will fight it, but what's he going to do? You're their mother. And once we're gone, he'll move on. Guys like him always do. He'll find some nice, boring woman who wants to talk about load-bearing walls and mortgage rates." Katie's response had taken 3 days. "I need to think about it. They're so young. And David's a good father, whatever else he is." Whatever else he is. I stared at that phrase, trying to decode what she'd meant. Whatever else besides a good father. What was I in Katie's private narrative? Boring? Predictable? The safe choice she'd outgrown? The conversation had continued sporadically through April and May. Bryce pushing for Katie to bring the children. Katie wavering, sometimes agreeing, sometimes suggesting they leave Emma and Jack with me until we get settled. Then, in early June, everything changed. "They're on to me," Bryce had written on June 3rd. "Someone at Meridian flagged the transfers. I've got maybe 2 weeks before they piece it together. We need to move now. Katie's response came within an hour. I can't take the kids on 2 weeks' notice. David will know something's wrong. He'll fight for custody and I'll lose them completely. Then leave them. I'm not going to prison because you can't make a decision. Are you in or out? 3 hours of silence in the email chain. Then, I'm in. But I need time to set it up so David doesn't suspect. Give me until September. I'll tell him I'm traveling for work, gradually build up to longer trips. Then when I don't come back, he'll think it's work-related at first. By the time he figures it out, we'll be gone. I sat back from the laptop, feeling sick. She'd chosen him. Not in a moment of passion or poor judgment, but in a calculated decision made over the course of 3 hours on a Tuesday afternoon in June. She'd weighed her options, husband and children versus fugitive lover, and decided we were the acceptable loss. The witness protection story had been her exit strategy, a way to disappear that would keep me from immediately calling the police or tracking her down. If I'd believed her, if I'd packed up the kids and followed her instructions, we would have driven to whatever rendezvous point she'd arranged. Then what? Would she have drugged us? Left us stranded somewhere while she and Bryce fled to the airport? I forwarded the entire email chain to Agent Walsh with a brief note. Thought you should see the full timeline. Katie knew about his crimes and actively helped plan their escape. The June 3rd exchange shows she knew he was fleeing law enforcement. His response came within 20 minutes. This is extremely helpful. The U.S. attorney will want these for the harboring charges. Also shows consciousness of guilt. She knew he was a fugitive when she aided him. Are you willing to testify if this goes to trial? I typed back, yes. One word. But it felt like stepping off a cliff. The phone rang at 11:47 that night, late enough that my first thought was emergency, something wrong with the kids. But Emma and Jack were asleep upstairs, and the caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. You self-righteous bastard, Katie's voice, tight with fury. You sent the FBI after me, your own wife. Ex-wife, I said quietly. Or soon-to-be. And you sent the FBI after yourself when you decided to run off with a fugitive. Bryce isn't what they're saying. Those charges are fabricated. His business partner set him up, stole from the company, and blamed it on Bryce. He's innocent. Katie, I kept my voice level. I read your emails, all of them, including the ones where he talks about liquidating assets and avoiding extradition. Innocent people don't flee to countries without extradition treaties. Silence on the line. Then, you had no right to read my private correspondence. You had no right to abandon your children and fake a federal witness protection program. I paused. Where are you? Like I'd tell you that. The FBI will find you eventually. Bryce stole from 14 people, Katie. Retirees who lost their savings. A woman who lost her daughter's college fund. These aren't fabricated charges. They're real victims with real losses. You don't understand what we have together, what he means to me. Then help me understand. I heard the edge in my own voice. Explain how a medical device consultant you met at a conference 11 months ago is worth more than 15 years of marriage and 2 children who love you. He sees me, Katie said. Really sees me. Not just as someone's wife or someone's mother, but as myself. When I'm with him, I'm not just playing a role. I'm alive. I thought about all the dinners I'd cooked, all the school plays I'd attended, all the nights I'd held her while she cried about her father's death, all the ways I'd tried to see her, support her, love her. I hope that's enough, I said. I hope feeling alive is worth what you're about to lose. She hung up without responding. I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time after that, phone still in my hand. Then I called Agent Walsh's number and left a voicemail. Katie just called from an unknown number. 11:47 p.m. She's still with Bryce and still defending him. Thought you should know. The next morning, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called a lawyer. The FBI moved faster than I expected. Agent Walsh called me back within 2 hours of our last conversation. Mr. Patterson, we've located your wife's vehicle. It's parked at a storage facility in Tigard. You store it on Pacific Highway. The unit is registered under a false name, but we ran the credit card used for payment. It traces back to a shell account we've been tracking in connection with Callahan's activities. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open in front of me, still cataloging every shred of evidence I'd collected. Is she there now? We have surveillance on the location. No movement yet, but we're preparing to execute a search warrant. I need to ask, did your wife mention anything about storage units? Any place she might be keeping belongings or documents? I thought back through our conversations, the fragments of her lies. No, but she took 3 suitcases when she left, more than she'd need for a few days. We believe they're staging supplies there, possibly preparing for transport to Mexico before heading further south. Walsh paused. Mr. Patterson, I want you to understand what we're dealing with. Callahan isn't just a white-collar criminal. He's demonstrated a pattern of manipulation and exploitation. Your wife may be a willing participant, or she's willing. The words came out harder than I intended. I've read the emails, Agent Walsh. She knows exactly what she's doing. Understood. His tone remained neutral, professional. We'd like you to try calling her again. See if you can get her to reveal her location. We can trace the call, but anything she says directly would help establish her state of mind and level of involvement. You want me to lie to her? I want you to have a conversation with your wife. What you choose to say is up to you. I looked at my phone, Katie's contact photo still showing her smiling at Emma's 6th birthday party. That version of her felt like someone I'd invented. And if she asks about the money again? Tell her you're working on it. Tell her whatever keeps her talking. After Walsh hung up, I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at that photo. The woman in the picture wore a sundress and held a glass of wine, her head tilted back in genuine laughter at something Jack had said. I remembered that moment. I'd been the one who made her laugh, repeating Jack's mangled knock-knock joke. Had any of it been real? I pressed her contact before I could reconsider. She answered on the 4th ring. David, I have your money. The lie came easier than I expected. 5,000, cash. Silence on her end, then, where? That depends. Where are you? I'm not telling you that. Her voice carried an edge of panic I hadn't heard before. You can leave it somewhere. I'll pick it up. Katie, this is insane. Just come home. We can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. She was crying now, soft hitching breaths between words. I can't come back, David. You don't understand what's at stake. Then explain it to me. I kept my voice level, reasonable. The architect solving a structural problem. Help me understand why you're throwing away 15 years, why you're abandoning Emma and Jack. Don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't you dare say I'm abandoning them. I'm protecting them. From what? From Bryce's crimes? You're the one who brought this into our lives. He's not what you think. Her voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. The people he took money from, they weren't innocent. It's complicated. The system is broken, David. He was trying to fix it. I closed my eyes. She actually believed this, or had convinced herself to believe it. He stole $2.3 million from 14 people. That's not fixing anything. You don't know the whole story. Then tell me. Tell me the whole story, Katie. Tell me why you're choosing a criminal over your own children. I'm not. She stopped. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, hardened. You called the FBI, didn't you? That's what this is. You're trying to trace this call. My stomach dropped. Katie, I knew it. I knew you'd do this. The crying had stopped completely now. You always have to be right, don't you? Always have to be the good guy, the responsible one. Well, congratulations, David. You win. This isn't about winning. The money. Leave it at Powell's Books downtown. Main floor, travel section, behind the Costa Rica guidebooks. Tomorrow at noon. The specificity of it struck me. She'd already planned this. Had probably planned it before she even called asking for money. Katie, please. Tomorrow at noon. Don't follow me. Don't try to see me. Just leave the money and walk away. She paused. Tell Emma and Jack I love them. Tell them I'm sorry. The line went dead. I immediately called Walsh back. She wants me to drop money at Powell's Books tomorrow. Downtown location, noon, travel section. We'll have agents in place. I could hear him typing in the background. Did she say anything about her current location? No, but she mentioned Costa Rica again, specifically. I replayed the conversation in my head. She wanted me to leave the money behind the Costa Rica guidebooks. That's not random. Probably not. We're already monitoring flights to Mexico and Central America. If they're planning to leave the country, they'll need to move soon. Walsh paused. Mr. Patterson, I need you to understand that tomorrow could go several ways. If your wife shows up to collect the money, we'll apprehend her. But there's a strong possibility she'll send someone else, or that this is a diversion to buy them time. I understand. We'll need you there with the money, or at least an envelope that looks like it contains money. Can you do that? I thought about Katie's voice on the phone, the way she'd said she was protecting the children by running away with a con man, the way she'd actually tried to convince me that Bryce was some kind of vigilante, stealing from the guilty. Yes, I said. I can do that. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the storage unit in Tigard, imagining what they'd stashed there. Fake passports, probably. Cash. Whatever supplies you'd need to disappear into another country. Katie had always been a planner. Color-coded calendars, detailed itineraries for family vacations, backup plans for her backup plans. She'd applied all that organizational skill to betraying me. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and went to Jack's room. He was sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the side, his mouth slightly open. I adjusted his blanket and watched him sleep. This little person who still believed his mother was coming back from a business trip. Emma's room was next. She slept curled on her side, phone charging on her nightstand. She'd asked me earlier that evening when Mom would be home, and I'd given her the same vague answer I'd been using for days. Soon, hopefully. How much longer could I maintain that lie? I went back downstairs and opened my laptop. The emails were still there. Katie's words to Bryce forming a narrative I couldn't stop reading. One from August caught my attention. One I'd skimmed before but hadn't fully processed. The kids will understand eventually. Maybe not right away, but when they're older. They'll see that I had to make an impossible choice. I chose love. B. I chose us. That has to count for something. I read it 3 times, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. She'd already written them off. Already decided that her affair, her criminal boyfriend, her fantasy of a new life, all of that mattered more than the 2 people sleeping upstairs. I forwarded the email to Walsh with a single line. Evidence of premeditation. His response came 5 minutes later. Received. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But I didn't rest. I sat at my kitchen table in the house I'd designed, surrounded by the life I'd built, and waited for morning to come. Powell's Books. At noon on a Tuesday felt surreally normal. Tourists browsed the stacks, college students camped in the aisles with coffee cups, the smell of old paper and new ink filled the air. I stood in the travel section with an envelope containing newspaper clippings cut to the size of bills, trying not to look at the 3 people I'd clocked as federal agents within 30 seconds of arriving. One was pretending to read a book on Japanese gardens. Another scrolled through her phone near the stairs. The third, a younger guy in a Timbers jersey, had positioned himself with a clear view of the entire floor. I slipped the envelope behind a Costa Rica guidebook at exactly noon and walked away. Nothing happened. I browsed the architecture section for 20 minutes, picked up a book on sustainable design I'd already read, put it back. The agents remained in position. No Katie, no Bryce, no mysterious courier collecting the drop. At 12:47, Walsh appeared beside me. "She's not coming." "I know. We got a hit on her credit card 10 minutes ago. Gas station in Eugene. She's heading south." Eugene was 2 hours away. While I'd been standing here playing spy games, Katie had been running. "What now?" I asked. "We've alerted Oregon State Police. They'll coordinate with local agencies." Walsh's expression was carefully neutral. "Mr. Patterson, you should go home. Be with your children. We'll handle this." I drove back to Lake Oswego in a fog. When I pulled into the driveway, my mother's car was there. She'd agreed to watch Emma and Jack while I dealt with what I'd told her was bank business. The lie had become automatic. Inside, Jack was building another Lego spaceship at the kitchen table. Emma sat on the couch, phone in hand, but she looked up when I entered. "Dad, when's Mom actually coming home?" I'd known this moment was coming, had rehearsed various versions of the truth, trying to find words that wouldn't shatter them completely. I sat down next to her. "Come here, buddy," I called to Jack. He abandoned his Legos and climbed onto the couch between us. My mother appeared from the kitchen, took one look at my face, and quietly excused herself to the back porch. "Your mom isn't on a business trip," I said. She's made some choices that I don't understand, and she's not going to be coming home for a while." Emma's face went very still. "She left us." Not a question, a statement. "She's confused right now. She's made some mistakes." "She left us," Emma repeated, and this time her voice cracked. "For how long?" I looked at my 12-year-old daughter, at Jack's wide, uncomprehending eyes, and I couldn't lie anymore. "I don't know. Maybe a long time. Maybe forever." Jack started crying first. Those huge, body-racking sobs of a 9-year-old whose world just collapsed. Emma just sat there, tears running silently down her face, her jaw set in an expression that looked heartbreakingly like Katie's. I held them both while they cried. My mother came back inside, saw us on the couch, and started crying too. We stayed like that until the light changed outside the windows, until Jack's sobs subsided into hiccups, until Emma pulled away and wiped her face with angry swipes. "I hate her," Emma said quietly. "No, you don't." "I do. She chose to leave. She didn't have to, but she did." I couldn't argue with that, because Emma was right. The FBI arrested Katie and Bryce 3 days later at a motel in Redding, California. They'd been planning to cross into Mexico the next morning, Walsh told me. Katie had $47,000 in cash in her suitcase, money she'd systematically withdrawn from our joint accounts over the past 2 months. Money I hadn't noticed disappearing because I'd trusted her with our finances. Bryce had fake passports for both of them. Different names, different birth dates, surprisingly professional-looking documents that must have cost thousands. The storage unit in Tigard had contained more supplies: burner phones, prepaid credit cards, a laptop with encrypted files detailing offshore accounts. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Katie was charged with harboring a fugitive, obstruction of justice, and wire fraud, the last for using our joint accounts to fund Bryce's escape. Bryce faced 14 counts of embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft, and half a dozen other charges I couldn't keep straight. They were both denied bail. I filed for divorce 3 days after her arrest. Emergency custody of Emma and Jack was granted immediately, not that there was any question. Katie was in federal detention awaiting trial. Her parents called, crying, asking what they could do. I told them they could visit their grandchildren anytime, but I didn't want to hear Katie's excuses or explanations. The trial took 11 months to reach court. During that time, Emma started therapy. Jack had nightmares. I learned to braid hair and help with math homework and have conversations about periods and friendship drama and all the things Katie used to handle. My mother moved in for 6 months to help. Rachel visited every weekend. We created a new normal, one that didn't include the woman who'd chosen a criminal over her own family. Katie's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, manipulated by Bryce, coerced into helping him, suffering from some kind of emotional breakdown that impaired her judgment. The prosecution presented the emails. All of them. Every "I love you" she'd sent to Bryce while lying to me. Every discussion of their escape plan. Every calculation about whether to take the children or leave them behind. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Bryce got 12 years in federal prison. Katie got 5, reduced because she'd cooperated with the investigation, provided evidence against Bryce, and showed genuine remorse, according to the judge. I attended the sentencing, sat in the back of the courtroom and watched Katie stand before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, crying as she apologized to the victims, to her family, to me. "I destroyed everything," she said, her voice breaking. "I destroyed my marriage, my relationship with my children, my entire life. I can't explain why I did it except to say I was selfish and stupid, and I convinced myself that what I felt for Bryce was worth any cost. I was wrong. I'm so wrong." The judge was unmoved. "Ms. Patterson, you didn't just betray your husband. You betrayed 14 victims who trusted Mr. Callahan with their life savings. You actively aided a criminal, lied to federal agents, and attempted to flee the country with stolen money. Your remorse, while noted, doesn't undo the harm you've caused." 5 years. Katie would be 47 when she got out. Emma would be 17. Jack would be 14. She'd miss everything. As they led her away, she looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I saw everything in that look: regret, shame, a desperate plea for what? Forgiveness? Understanding? I looked away. The divorce was finalized while Katie was in prison. She didn't contest it, didn't fight for custody. Her lawyer sent a letter saying she believed it was in the children's best interest to remain with me. I sold the house in Lake Oswego. Too many memories, too many ghosts. We moved to a smaller place in West Lynn, closer to Emma's school. I designed it myself. Clean lines, lots of light, a fresh start. Emma and Jack visited Katie twice in the first year. Emma refused to go after that. She made her choice, she said, and I didn't push. Jack kept visiting, once every few months. He'd come home quiet, withdrawn, and I'd find him crying in his room later. But he kept going. "She's still my mom," he said, when I asked if he wanted to stop. I couldn't argue with that either. The victims of Bryce's fraud received partial restitution. The FBI recovered about $800,000 from various accounts. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. I thought about reaching out to them, apologizing somehow for my wife's role in their losses. My lawyer advised against it. Instead, I set up a college fund for Emma and Jack with money from the sale of the house. Whatever else happened, whatever damage Katie had done, I was going to make sure our children had futures. 3 years after Katie's arrest, I met someone. Her name was Jennifer. She was a landscape architect I'd partnered with on a commercial project. She had a daughter from a previous marriage, understood complicated family dynamics, didn't push when I said I wasn't ready to introduce her to Emma and Jack. We took it slow. Coffee dates, then dinners, then weekend trips when the kids were with my mother. She made me laugh again, reminded me that trust wasn't always a weapon someone could use against you. Emma noticed first. "You're different lately," she said one morning over breakfast. She was 15 now, taller than Katie had been, with the same stubborn set to her jaw. "Happier." "Maybe a little," I admitted. "Good. You deserve to be happy." She paused. "Is it someone?" Maybe. She smiled. A real smile. The first genuine one I'd seen in months. Then I'm happy for you. Jack was harder to read. At 12, he'd become quiet, introspective, carrying his mother's abandonment like a weight he couldn't put down. But when I finally introduced him to Jennifer 6 months later, he was polite, cautious, and later told me, "She seems nice, Dad." It was enough. Katie was released after serving 4 years. Early release for good behavior. She called me the day she got out. "I know I have no right to ask," she said, "but I'd like to see Emma and Jack, just for an hour. I want to tell them I'm sorry." Emma was 17, applying to colleges, building a life that didn't include her mother. "No," she said flatly when I told her. "I don't want to see her. I don't want to hear her apologies. She had 4 years to think about what she did. That doesn't change anything." Jack, 14 and still heartbreakingly hopeful, said yes. I drove him to a coffee shop in downtown Portland, sat at a separate table while he met with the woman who'd given birth to him, and then chosen a criminal over him. I watched them talk, watched Katie cry, watched Jack's shoulders shake. When it was over, he came back to me and said, "Can we go home now?" We drove in silence for 10 minutes before he spoke again. "She said she loves me, that she never stopped loving us." "I believe that's true," I said carefully, "but she still left." "Yes. Love isn't supposed to work like that, is it? If you love someone, you're supposed to stay." I thought about all the easy answers I could give him. About how love is complicated, how people make mistakes, how his mother had been confused and made terrible choices. But Jack deserved better than easy answers. "Real love means staying," I said. "It means choosing the people who matter, even when it's hard. Even when something else seems more exciting or appealing. Your mom said she loved us, and maybe she did. But she didn't love us enough to stay." He nodded slowly. "You stayed. I'll always stay, buddy. Always." He didn't ask to see Katie again. 5 years after the divorce, I married Jennifer in a small ceremony at our house in West Lynn. Emma was my best man, her choice, and one that made me cry when she suggested it. Jack walked Jennifer down the aisle. Her daughter, Sophie, was the flower girl. We blended our families carefully, respectfully, acknowledging the scars everyone carried. Jennifer never tried to replace Katie, never pushed the kids to call her mom. She was just Jennifer, steady, kind, present. Emma left for college that fall. University of Oregon, studying environmental science. She called once a week, came home for holidays, slowly became the person she was meant to be. Jack thrived in high school, joined the robotics team, made friends who didn't know about his mother's crimes. He still had hard days, still sometimes asked questions about why Katie had left. But they came less frequently. I built buildings, designed homes for other families, created spaces where people could build lives. Every foundation I poured, I thought about stability, about structures that could weather storms. Katie sent letters sometimes, forwarded through her lawyer. Apologies, explanations, requests to be part of the children's lives. Emma threw hers away unread. Jack read his, then filed them in a box under his bed. He never responded. I didn't tell them what to feel, didn't push forgiveness or reconciliation. They'd each have to find their own path through the wreckage Katie had left behind. 10 years after Katie's arrest, I sat in my office looking at a blueprint for a new community center in Beaverton. Emma was in graduate school. Jack was applying to colleges. Jennifer was in the garden, planting spring bulbs with Sophie. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "David, it's Katie." I hadn't heard her voice in years. It sounded older, worn. "What do you want?" "I heard Emma's getting married. I saw the announcement in the paper." She paused. "I wanted to send a gift, to let her know I'm thinking of her. Emma was engaged to a marine biology student she'd met at U of O. They were planning a small wedding next summer. She'd told me explicitly that she didn't want Katie there, didn't want any contact. Don't, I said. Don't send anything. Don't call. Don't try to insert yourself into her life now. She's my daughter. She was your daughter. You gave up that right when you chose Bryce Callahan over her. When you planned to abandon her for a new life in Costa Rica. When you lied to her face for months. My voice stayed level, calm. Emma has built a good life. She's happy. She doesn't need you disrupting that with guilt gifts and apologies. Silence on the line. Then, I made a mistake. The worst mistake of my life. Don't I get a chance to make it right? No, I said simply. Some mistakes don't get fixed. Some choices can't be unmade. You taught me that, Katie. You taught all of us. I've changed. Good. I'm glad. But that doesn't entitle you to forgiveness. It doesn't erase what you did. I looked out the window at Jennifer and Sophie, at the garden they were building together. Emma and Jack will decide for themselves if they ever want a relationship with you. But that's their choice, not yours. And right now, they've chosen to move forward without you. David, please. Goodbye, Katie. I hung up and blocked the number. Jennifer came in a few minutes later, dirt on her knees, smiling. Who was that? Wrong number, I said. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. She'd learned when to push and when to let things be. That night, I told Emma about the call. She deserved to know. Thanks for handling it, she said. I meant what I said. I don't want her at my wedding. I don't want her in my life. I know. Do you think that makes me a bad person, not forgiving her? I thought about all the ways Katie had broken us. The lies, the manipulation, the systematic dismantling of our family for a criminal fantasy. The years of therapy, the nightmares, the trust issues Emma still struggled with in her relationships. No, I said. I think it makes you honest. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone, sweetheart. It's something you give when you're ready, if you're ever ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too. She hugged me then, fierce and tight. I'm glad you stayed, Dad. I'm glad you didn't give up on us. Never, I said. Not ever. Emma's wedding was perfect. Small ceremony on the coast, just family and close friends. Jack gave a toast that made everyone cry. Jennifer's daughter Sophie caught the bouquet. Emma looked radiant, happy, whole. There was a moment during the reception when I saw Emma glance toward the entrance, as if expecting someone. The ghost of Katie, perhaps, the mother who should have been there but wasn't. Then Emma's husband pulled her onto the dance floor, and the moment passed. Later, when I was driving home with Jennifer, she asked, "Do you think about her, Katie?" Sometimes, I admitted. Not the way I used to, not with anger anymore. Mostly I just feel nothing, like she was someone I knew a long time ago. Do you think she regrets it? Really regrets it? I thought about Katie sitting in prison, missing every milestone. Emma's high school graduation, Jack's first girlfriend. All the ordinary moments that make up a life. Probably, I said. But regret doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring back the years she lost. It doesn't undo the damage. Jennifer reached over and took my hand. You built something good from the wreckage. The kids are okay. You're okay. That's what matters. She was right. We'd survived. More than survived. We'd built new lives, found new happiness, created stability from chaos. Katie had tried to burn everything down, but we'd risen from those ashes stronger than before. Jack graduated from MIT with a degree in engineering. Emma finished her doctorate in marine biology. Both built lives full of purpose and meaning. Both learned, slowly and painfully, that trust was possible again. I never heard from Katie after that phone call. Heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to Nevada, was working retail, living quietly, alone. Sometimes I wondered if she thought about us. If she lay awake at night cataloging everything she'd lost for a fantasy that lasted less than a year. If she understood, finally, the true cost of her choices. Mostly, I didn't think about her at all. Because here's what I learned from watching my family fall apart and then rebuild itself. Betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something else. Something harder won, but more authentic. Something built on truth instead of illusions. Katie chose excitement over stability, fantasy over reality, passion over commitment. She chose wrong, and she paid for it with everything that mattered. I chose to stay, to rebuild, to trust again, carefully and with open eyes, to teach my children that love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision you make every day, to show up, to be present, to choose the people who matter most.